Disney presents. From Frontierland.
He'd ride with the law till the battle was through. With a star on his chest, he was law in the West. They called him Elfego El Gato.
In the early days of the fast-growing territory of New Mexico, lawyers were scarce, but the need for them was great. It was this demand for their services that attracted a number of eager young college-trained lawyers from the East. Unwittingly, many of these legal greenhorns became the attorneys for certain powerful cattlemen who wanted to expand their holdings without obstruction from the courts. Throughout his career as a frontier lawyer, Elfego Baca was dedicated to the belief that no man was above the law. Thus, he found himself defending the rights of the weak against the powerful ranch owners. In this newest adventure of our true hero of the West, Elfego Baca matches wits in a legal duel with one of these smart young Eastern attorneys. Its title, Friendly Enemies at Law.
That sure is a good-looking horse you have there, mister.
Thank you, son.
You want to sell him?
No, sirree.
A man who owned a horse like that would sure sit proud. Right, Mr. Baca?
He would.
Excuse me, are you Elfego Baca, the lawyer?
Yes, I am.
And you're just the man I've been looking for. I need legal help real bad, Mr. Baca. Now, I don't have any available cash, but I'm willing to give you Diablo here if you'll take the case.
His name is Diablo.
Yeah?
That's a very tempting offer, Mr.
Oxford. Frank Oxford. Just rode over from Taota to see you.
Taota. That's over 100 miles from here.
Yeah, and pretty dusty, too.
That's a long way to travel to see a lawyer.
Well, in this case, distance doesn't matter. I'd have rode 500 miles to get you, sir.
That's very interesting, Mr. Oxford. But it would have been easier to get legal counsel in Taota.
No, because there's not but one lawyer in that town. And he don't take anybody's business but Rawls Kettrick.
Rawls Kettrick. I've heard that name before.
Well, he owns the Sundown Ranch. It's one of the biggest spreads in these parts. But a meaner, land-grabbiner, sidewinder you'll never find from here at the Mexican border.
Maybe you'd better start from the beginning, Mr. Oxford.
Well, there really isn't much to tell, but somehow about 50 of my cattle got into Sundown herd, and I just haven't been able to get them back. A lot of other small ranchers had the same trouble.
Have you discussed this matter with Mr. Kettrick?
You just don't discuss anything with a man like Kettrick. You listen. And he simply says that he hasn't got them.
I understand.
Now, 50 head of steers might not mean much to a man like him, but by jingles, they mean a lot to me.
Well, I don't know if I can take another case right now. But this horse puts up quite an argument. Maybe a few days vacation is just what I need.
You mean you'll take the case?
I couldn't resist a retainer like this. You just hired yourself a lawyer.
Oh, thanks.
Oxford's back.
First thing we'll do is get a warrant and have the sheriff serve it.
That might take some doing.
You said the only lawyer in town works for Kettrick. The sheriff on his payroll, too?
Oh, I believe Bodie Hampton's honest enough, but like most folks in this town, he's not going to throw his weight against Kettrick.
In this case, he won't have much choice in the matter.
Well, I hope you're right about that.
Recognize that fellow with him? But he must be somebody special if Frank lets him ride that horse.
Better take a couple of the boys and find out what he's doing here.
I sure will. Hey, Roy, Neil. Let's go. Hello, Frank.
Howdy.
Heard you was out of town.
You got mighty big ears, Buffalo.
That's right. Now let him hear who this dude is.
The name is Elfego Baca, attorney at law. Mr. Oxford hired me to protect his interests.
From where I stand, you don't hardly look big enough to protect your own interests, Mr. Baca. You the Elfego Baca? The one they claim's got more lives than a cat?
Those claims have been slightly exaggerated.
From what I hear, Mr. Baca, if you throw a cat in the air, he always lands on his feet. Is that so?
Yes, that's so.
Let's find out. Well, I reckon he ain't much of a cat after all. Here, wait a minute. All right, Mr. Baca, I'm gonna give you a beating that you ain't never gonna forget. Turn him loose.
Hold it right there, Buffalo. You're all under arrest. Take the guns, Keeley.
Ain't nobody taking my gun off me.
Now behave yourself, Buffalo, or you'll be picking buckshot out of your hide till Judgment Day. Take the guns.
What's the trouble, Bodie?
All couple of your hands got a little hot under the collar, but I think a spell in jail will cool them off some.
Just because we have...
Never mind. I'll take care of everything.
Sheriff, I'm Elfego Baca, an attorney. Could I find out on what charges we're being arrested?
Oh, Mr. Baca, huh? Being as how you're an attorney, I imagine you'll be able to figure it out and answer that question yourself. After you, gentlemen. You too.
Here's your hat, Mr. Baca.
Locking me and the boys up's a mistake, Bodie. Kettrick ain't gonna like it one bit.
When Kettrick lets me tell him how to run his ranch, then I'll let him tell me how to run my job.
Sheriff, I'd like to post bail for our release.
Oh, you would you?
Yes. It's the customary procedure when fighting is the charge.
Well, you can skip all that fancy law talk. It won't get you anywhere with me. I know your reputation. This is a nice, quiet town, and it's going to stay that way.
You can't hold us here without charges.
Looks like I'm doing a pretty fair job of it. A couple of days in jail may do you good. Might make you think some about going back where you belong.
I'll go when I've settled Oxford's case, not before.
Well, you got your job. I've got mine.
But I'll at least have my horse taken care of.
All right, Mr. Baca. That I'll do.
Hey, Shyster. If you want to stay healthy, you'd better take the sheriff's advice.
I'll keep him for a while, teach him a lesson.
Mr. Kettrick will take care of that personally, I can assure you.
Well, it's about time. What took you so long?
Maybe I thought that a few hours in which to contemplate your evil past might be beneficial.
Come on, boys.
Wade said for you to go back to the ranch.
All right. Kind of sorry to leave you, Shyster.
What about Frank and his Santa Fe lawyer?
Rather odd to see a member of the legal profession behind bars. It's usually our clients.
He wanted to put up bail.
Well, I don't think that's necessary, Sheriff. I think you should release him.
Release him?
Yes, release him.
All right. You're free. Remember, first sign of trouble and back in you go.
We're not through with each other yet, Sheriff. There's still something that has to be settled.
Like what?
I want you to serve a warrant giving us the right to search the Kettrick herd. Mr. Oxford claims 50 head of his cattle are there.
I knew it. I knew you was going to be a troublemaker.
My name's Martin Dibbler. I'm the Sundown Ranch attorney.
How do you do?
Search warrant's a pretty serious thing, Mr. Baca.
We accuse no one of wrong. My client just wants what's his.
I see. Well, if your client has a legitimate grievance, I'm sure this can be settled without a search warrant.
I'm perfectly willing to discuss it.
Fine. Would my office be convenient?
Yes, it would. I'll talk this out with Mr. Dibbler. Meet you at your ranch later.
Mr. Baca, remember now, he works for Kettrick. Don't let none of that fancy talk fool you.
Well, sir, you've been warned.
And it's only fair to return the courtesy. I'm a shyster. You heard one of your clients say so.
Shall we go, Mr. Baca?
You lead the way, Mr. Dibbler.
Make yourself comfortable, Mr. Baca.
It won't be hard to do. For a lawyer who has one client, you seem to do very well.
Well, I'd rather have one big fish than a whole slew of little ones.
Maybe so. But I always felt it was little fish who needed the most help.
Now, one thing for certain, you'll never be a rich man.
No. But at least I'll be a happy one.
Cigar?
Thank you. What do you intend to do about my client's claim, Mr. Dibbler?
Prove to you that it's without justification.
That may take some doing, especially with Rose Kettrick's reputation.
Well, you have a reputation too, Mr. Baca, but I haven't let it influence my judgment.
I deserve that.
Rawls Kettrick may have a few traits that we wouldn't exactly approve of, but he's not a thief.
Then there shouldn't be any difficulties.
Oh, I'm sure this can all be settled easily.
And you don't mind if I speak to Mr. Kettrick?
On the contrary. As a matter of fact, I'll ride out to the ranch with you and introduce you to him personally.
You're very kind.
Well, how about some lunch first?
If you don't mind, I'd rather wait until this is settled. My appetite will be better then.
The sacrifices we lawyers make for our clients. That's just a part of the Kettrick herd, Mr. Baca.
Looks like over 1,000 head.
You still think Kettrick would steal 50 head of cattle?
Mr. Dibbler, I never make up my mind about a man's innocence or guilt until I have all of the evidence before me. Looks like a runaway. He'll get himself killed.
Mr. Baca, wait!
You're a very lucky young fellow. I'm sorry. You see, I thought that...
Well, it's about time you recognize the fact.
It's not a mistake I would make twice. Are you all right?
Of course I am. There was nothing wrong in the first place.
Nothing wrong. A runaway can be dangerous.
Runaway? Why, I had complete control the whole time. Oh, no wonder you caught me. Hello, boy.
You know this horse?
Diablo and I are old friends. But what are you doing with him?
I got him from Frank Oxford.
Oh, I don't believe it. My father's been trying to buy him for me since he was a colt. But Frank Oxford wouldn't sell.
Maybe your father didn't offer enough.
Everything all right?
It seems I made a mistake. The young lady was not on the runaway after all.
If you hadn't been in such a hurry to make a hero of yourself, I could have told you that Miss Kettrick is an excellent rider.
So I noticed. Too late. My apologies, Miss Kettrick.
Patricia, this is Elfego Baca. He's a lawyer from Santa Fe.
Unlike most attorneys, Mr. Baca seems to prefer action to talking.
There's an old saying, Miss Kettrick. Act now. Later may be too late. That's been a great deal of help to me in my work.
Pat, we're going to the ranch. Would you like to come back with us?
I will if Mr. Baca will let me ride Diablo.
That would be an honor. Up you go.
Oh, he's wonderful, isn't he?
A beautiful woman. On a handsome horse. A delight to the eye.
Well, Mr. Baca seems to be not only a man of action, but fairly good with words as well.
Most lawyers are, Mr. Dibbler.
Maybe you'd like to talk about selling Diablo, Mr. Baca.
Well, that's one subject that doesn't interest me as much as others. Shall we go?
I'll make a bet with you, Mr. Baca. Sooner or later, Diablo will be mine.
I think the odds are against you, Miss Kettrick. Whenever I get sugared up, it's going to cost me money.
That's mean of you, Father, and you know it.
I know that you're a spoiled girl who always gets whatever she wants. What is it this time?
Diablo.
Aha, the plot thickens. But first things first, I've had the privilege of meeting Diablo, but I can't say the same of this gentleman here.
Mr. Kettrick, this is Elfego Baca.
Well, I'm glad to know you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Are you that Santa Fe lawyer?
Yes, I am.
You're a good name and good deeds precede you.
Thank you, sir.
This is my foreman, Wade Cather.
Yes, we met.
You have?
I better get back to work, boss.
Mr. Baca owns Diablo.
How in the world did you ever come into possession of that horse?
I took him instead of a fee.
Well, how do you like that? I've been trying to buy Diablo for 2 years, but do you think Frank Oxford would sell? Not to me, he wouldn't. How come? You have him over a barrel?
If anybody has Frank Oxford over a barrel, it's you.
I don't think I quite know how to take that last remark, Mr. Baca.
Just a minute, Mr. Kettrick. I don't think you have the right impression as to why we're here.
Not Diablo?
No, sir.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it is. Now, before you get mired down in business, Father dear, would you please take care of this Diablo business first?
I'm beginning to get the feeling that the one might be connected with the other.
If there is any connection, it's beside the point. Bluntly, Mr. Kettrick, I'm here to represent Frank Oxford. And he claims that 50 head of his cattle strayed into your herd.
Frank's a good man. As honest and respectable as they come. Let's just say he made a mistake.
I told Mr. Baca that it was practically impossible for a strange brand to stray into the sundown herd. Wouldn't you say that was a fact, Mr. Kettrick?
Well, of course it's a fact. I hire the best hands in the Southwest. Men who can tell a sundown brand as well as I can, and I'll back their say-so to the limit.
I appreciate your honest intentions. But mistakes can happen. Especially in the dust and confusion of Roundup.
Not a mistake of 50 head.
Even so, I'd like permission to check your herd.
Check my... Well, you won't get it, Baca. Absolutely not.
Then I'll have to use other means. Good day, sir.
Just a minute. Hold on there. You know, you're just a thin little man on this range, Mr. Baca. I could cut you down like a cornstalk.
It might be interesting to see you try.
Sick him, Mr. Baca. Nothing like a good fight.
Now, you stay out of this.
Well, your hand's been called, Father. It's all over. Now, let's get back to Diablo.
Diablo is not for sale. Even to you, miss.
Let's not be hasty, Mr. Baca. everything has a price. I'm willing to pay quite handsomely for that horse. Pay for him in more ways than one, if you get my meaning.
I do.
$2,000 if you go back to Santa Fe and leave Diablo in my corral.
No. You could offer $1 million and the answer would still be no. You think I trade horses for men's rights?
Then it's war, Baca. Winner take all.
War, then. Winner taking what is rightly his.
Dibbler, you're my lawyer. Shut him up.
That won't be easy, Mr. Kettrick. He's a man of principle.
As far as I'm concerned, he's a dog of a lawyer. And so are you. So it's dog eat dog. And if you haven't got the stomach for it, you're not working for me. No more fretting about that horse, honey. It's the last thing I ever do. You'll have Diablo.
I'm sorry about this, Mr. Baca.
He's stubborn and tough, but so am I.
He's also rich and powerful.
And he has a pretty daughter.
Please, let's leave her out of this. As for Kettrick, you can be sure that he'll never let you see that herd, so let's try to settle this thing sensibly.
I hate to see a nice fellow like you get hurt, Mr. Dibbler. But if that's the way it has to be.
Howdy, Mr. Baca.
Hello, Frank.
I was just talking about you.
And I was discussing you with Kettrick.
What'd he say?
Maybe I'd better tell you when we're alone.
No, it's all right. They understand the situation. This is Will Ryan.
Howdy.
Seton Harper.
Gentlemen.
Mr. Baca. And Jim Smith.
How do you do?
As a matter of fact, Mr. Baca, we're in the same boat as Frank here.
You mean all of you have lost some cattle?
82 head last month. Seton here is missing 100.
Yeah, and when you figure our losses, it comes to a right sizable number.
Then why haven't you done something about it?
Kind of hard to think of a man as rich and powerful as Kettrick being a cattle thief.
Sometimes a man gets too rich and too powerful. Then breaking the law doesn't bother him.
But that's why I hired you, Mr. Baca. Giving up Diablo there was about the hardest thing I ever done. But I figured that no price was too high to pay to protect my interest.
Well, Kettrick is, as you said, a tough man. How far do you want to go?
Well, I expect you to walk.
Throw me your gun. How's Frank?
Lucky. Bullet caught him in the arm. Couple of weeks and he'll be all right.
Good. Thanks for the use of your gun.
It's all right. Did you find out who he was, Mr. Baca?
No, but he left me as that as a remembrance. Mrs. Oxford?
That's right.
I'm Elfego Baca. Is there anything I can do to help?
Frank brought this all on himself. I told him not to go hiring a lawyer.
Your husband did what he thought was best.
I want you to drop the case, Mr. Baca. I don't want any more trouble.
Justice isn't something you wait for, Mrs. Oxford. Sometimes you have to fight for it.
And get killed in the process? It isn't worth it.
Deep inside, I hope you don't believe that. Since Frank is wounded, I'd like one of you men to come in town to sign a search warrant. Now, you've all lost cattle. Searching for them is your right.
What you say is true, Mr. Baca, as far as it goes. But like Mrs. Oxford said, getting yourself killed over a few head of cattle don't seem sensible.
Yeah, and we've got our families to think about.
We'd like to help, but good sense tells us to keep quiet and do nothing.
Since you feel that way, at least do me one favor. Keep quiet about the shooting until you hear from me. If you have courage enough for that.
Mr. Baca, I didn't expect to see you so soon.
Maybe you didn't expect to see me at all.
To tell you the truth, I would be happier if you just dropped out of sight.
Yes, so it seems.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
Then I'll enlighten you. An attempt was made to kill me this afternoon. Frank Oxford got the bullet, luckily only a wound. Now, it could be you represent the man who ordered the shooting. It's also possible you're involved.
Oh, wait a moment, Mr. Baca.
You keep telling me Kettrick is innocent. If that's so, then why are all the small ranchers afraid of him? You don't find fear without reason.
I think you owe me an apology.
As I already said, for a lawyer who has only one client, you seem to do very well. Maybe a little too well.
Despite your opinion, Mr. Baca, I have a great respect for the law. I would never violate its ethics.
For money, some men would do a great many things.
You're speaking of a dishonest man, Mr. Baca.
Perhaps I've been jumping to conclusions. I apologize.
It's a little late for that. You can't insult a man one moment and then ask him to forget it the next.
I only wanted to satisfy myself you had no connection with the shooting. I'm convinced.
Well, now that you're satisfied, it's my turn. If you'll be so good as to follow me outside.
I'll apologize again. Does that make you feel better?
Not in the least. Please follow me. A sound thrashing may teach you not to slander a man's character.
This is foolish. I had some doubts in my mind. I acted the way I did to clear them up.
I think you'd better take off your coat.
There's no need for this, you know.
Before we begin, I think it's only fair to warn you that I'm an excellent boxer. I was champion of my class at Harvard.
I apologized once. What more can I do?
Since you won't fight, I have no choice but to force the issue.
Just remember, you brought this on yourself. Have you had enough? You still want to continue?
I think my honor and integrity are satisfied. Oh. I'll accept that handshake now. Why don't we go to my office and clean up?
That's a good idea. There are some things I want to discuss with you. How many head of cattle did Kettrick send to market last year?
Even if I knew, I couldn't tell you.
I could find out by checking the sundown tally books.
Now, well, you'd have to see them first, and he's pretty particular about who knows his business.
You ever see this hat before?
Oh, it belongs to Wade Cather. I recognize the hat band. He usually wears it on the range. What about it?
You just identified the man who tried to kill me.
Now, wait a minute, Elfego. I know what you're thinking, but just because Cather works for Kettrick doesn't mean that Kettrick's involved in this.
If you're so sure Kettrick is innocent, why don't you help me prove it?
You asking me to work with you?
Why not? We both want to see justice done.
Well, I couldn't help you and still represent Kettrick. It wouldn't be ethical.
I'm not asking you to go against your ethics. Only to clear Kettrick of the suspicions against him.
Oh, he isn't involved in this. I'd stake my reputation on it.
Then back up your belief with action.
What do you want me to do?
Well, the first thing I think we should do.
Something I can do for you, gentlemen?
I'd like a warrant to search Rolls Kettrick's herd and examine his tally books.
Who did you say?
Rolls Kettrick. The complainant is Elfego Baca.
Are you sure you want a warrant against Kettrick, mister?
That's what I said.
Why, you're supposed to be his lawyer. Are you just going to stand there and let him do this?
Give him the warrant.
You know, when he gets this thing, the explosion is liable to blow the roof off from over your heads.
That's our worry.
It's part mine, too. Kettrick practically put me in this office.
You're just doing your job.
I'm putting myself out of a job, that's what you mean.
I have the feeling you won't be the only one.
I knew you was going to be a troublemaker the first day you rode into town.
I'm just asking you to do your duty, Sheriff.
Well, serving a warrant on Rawls Kettrick is beyond the call of duty, if you ask me.
Then you won't serve it?
Personally, I'd rather face a mountain lion barehanded. But nobody ever said I'd back down on the job.
I appreciate this, Sheriff.
Well, if you're saying that to make me feel better, don't. This is one job where I think I'll be better off I'm not wearing a gun. Now, Mr. Kettrick, I want you to understand this. There's nothing personal about it. I've got my job to do. I've got my duty to perform.
Never mind the speeches. Get to the point.
Well, like I'm trying to tell you, Mr. Kettrick, I don't like doing this, but being the law here, I've got certain responsibilities.
Now, look here, I haven't got all day. If you got something to say, spit it out.
Yes, maybe you better do this.
I'd be glad to.
What is all this hocus pocus anyway?
This will explain everything. Since you refuse to cooperate, you leave me no other choice.
A warrant to search my herd and examine my tally books.
Did you know about this?
Under the circumstances, I thought it was the best thing to do.
Well, you thought wrong. Nobody's gonna stick their nose into my business.
Now, Mr. Kettrick, there's no use getting all riled up. That's a legal warrant, and you've got to abide by it.
You think so? As far as I'm concerned, it's just a scrap of paper. Now get yourselves out of here and off of my property.
No man is bigger than the law.
The law is only strong when it can be enforced, and in this case, that can't be done.
An innocent man has nothing to hide.
I say nobody searches my herd or looks at my tally books, and that's final.
What are you going to do about this?
Well, there doesn't seem to be much I can do.
Now, he's talking sense unless he wants to bite off a whole mess of trouble.
Mr. Kettrick, it's my duty to advise.
I want to hear from you, I'll ask. Now, all of you, go on, get out of here.
Yes, sir.
What's wrong?
I think I'll stop by and see how Frank Oxford is doing. That shooting wasn't reported to the sheriff, was it?
No, I don't think so. You want me to come along with you?
No, thank you. You can do me a favor, though. Do you know the name of the buyer of the Kettrick herd?
Sure, it's a man named Ferguson.
Will you send him a telegram? Find out how many of the sundown cattle he bought last delivery.
I don't see how that's going to help the situation.
Then it can't hurt it either, can it? I'll see you, amigo.
Who's there? I said, who's there?
What's the matter, boss?
It's Baca. Buffalo, go outside. Keep an eye open. Wade, look through the house upstairs.
not here to do anyone harm. I'm trying to clear your father. I can if you let me. Do you believe me?
If I do hide you, Mr. Baca, will you sell me Diablo? Diablo. What's wrong?
That lawyer Barker's somewhere in the house. Better keep your door locked.
Thank you, I will.
I'm indebted to you, Miss Kettrick.
Well, you're not safe yet, Mr. Baca.
That's true.
How will you get out of here?
I'll go this way.
But they'll be watching the house.
Here. Give the search warrant to your father. You tell him I was just enforcing it. And thank you again.
Did you see him? He's over there.
I know he went by here.
Take a look around back there.
Well, this is a fine time of night for a call.
Did you get an answer to the telegram I asked you to send?
I won't be here till the morning.
Well, at least I have the Kettrick tally book.
How'd you get that?
Never mind. It's my opinion that the cattle the small ranches are missing are mixed in with the Kettrick herd.
Oh, I can't believe that. There must be some other explanation.
Here, you look at this. Kettrick shipped 4,000 head of cattle to market last year.
Yeah?
Now, what if the cattle buyer actually bought 300 or 400 head more?
Somebody would have made himself a lot of money.
When that telegram arrives in the morning, I think we may know who that someone is.
Here you are, gentlemen.
What does it say? Well, I guess this settles it.
Hey, look out there. First time he's been in town since he broke his leg. Must be something important.
There he is. Pull up. You, Dibbler.
Mr. Kettrick, I've just found out something.
I thought you'd have had sense enough to leave town by now, Mr. Baca. Finding you here just saves the sheriff some trouble.
You'd be arresting the wrong man, Mr. Kettrick.
But I only sent 4,000 head. Where'd the other 500 come from?
Why don't you ask your foreman?
You got an answer for that?
Sure. I bought those steers for myself on the way to market.
And have the Kettrick brand put on them? You better come up with a better story than that, Catherine.
Just stand still and nobody will get hurt. We'd better be leaving, boss.
You all right, Elfego?
I'm fine.
Mr. Baca, I'm sorry I was so bullheaded. Guess the only way I can make up for it is to settle the claims of Frank Oxford and those other ranchers.
I'm glad you feel that way, Mr. Kettrick.
We'll settle all the details. There won't be any trouble.
Speaking of troubles, it looks like Mr. Cather has had his share of them. I wonder where he could find himself a good lawyer. Hmm?
I don't see why you have to leave so soon, Elfego. One more day in town couldn't hurt.
You forget I'm not like you. I can't make my living with just one client.
Well, if you keep taking livestock for fees, you're never going to make any money.
I think he will. At least with Diablo. That is, if Mr. Baca will sell him to me.
I'd like to oblige, Miss Kettrick, but I've grown awfully fond of the horse. On the other hand, I do owe you a favor.
Yes, you do. My father's still trying to figure out where you hid when they were looking for you.
I don't like to leave under obligation, Miss Kettrick.
Well, then, perhaps you'll have dinner with us at the hotel, and we'll discuss the matter more fully.
I had been planning on leaving for Santa Fe, but I suppose one more day can't hurt.
What about all those clients that are waiting for you?
You just said I'd never make any money. I'd be delighted to accept your invitation, Miss Kettrick, so that we can discuss the fate of a fine horse called Diablo. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Adios, amigo.
Well, Diablo, what do you think of that?
In the land of big men, when this great West was wild, Elfego was small and his nature was mild. Elfego was wise and Elfego was strong. Elfego El Gato, who made right from wrong. And the legend was that, like El Gato the cat, 9 lives had El